Hello, my name is Thomas Russell, graduate student at the University of Alabama, and this podcast was created in relation to a group project that is for the College of Human Environmental Sciences, the School of Interactive Technology. Now, the goal of this podcast is to mainly give the listener an idea of why we actually use podcasts and why they're useful. To begin, though, we'll look at some of the more important concepts, such as, what is a podcast exactly? And, when we look at this term, when you hear the name of a podcast, okay, what we think of automatically is some kind of downloaded audio, an MP3, an MP4 file, something along those lines. But more importantly, a podcast will provide information to a listener. And this not only can be done through education, but businesses and corporations can also use it. And it's a way for someone to sit and maybe type up some information or explain a concept or a new idea. And they can put that information on a website. They could put it on a blog. And you could even post it on a social media site. And once you basically put that information out there, it's accessible to tens of hundreds of, if not millions of people. So it's a fairly easy way for you to get information in the hands of a lot of people. We talk about, how easy is it to find a podcast? Well, it really, as long as you have internet access and some kind of personal computer, whether it's an iPhone or a laptop, personal computer, even the new touchpads, something along those lines will allow you to listen to, these podcasts. So they have such versatility to them. We like to think of them as being mobile, because no matter where you are, you can stream information from a podcast and use it, at your discretion. There was, a time when I used podcasts for my students, giving them just some information, and also I would put other podcasts from some companies like iTunes, for example, where you could have free podcasts about information, and you can use them. So, podcasts are very important. It's a really good tool to use. The main thing is we just want to make sure that, we're using it appropriately. So we look at who can actually benefit from these. Well, obviously, teacher students necessarily come to mind first. And the reason is that teachers can often use a podcast to reinforce concepts that were taught that specific day. If the student goes home and maybe forgets some parts of a lecture, doesn't quite understand an assignment, they could go on maybe the teacher's website, school website, and they could find information very easily through the podcasts. But now let's say, for example, the same student comes home and he doesn't quite understand it, and he asks his parents for help, and the parents don't understand the assignment. Well, here's where the parents can benefit as well. Because this time now the parents can go on, can find out what the information is. Maybe they can do some kind of voiceover PowerPoint. Maybe it's just a little audio snippet of, the lesson that was going over for the day. And this is a great way for the parents to get a little refresher course on that information that was being taught. But if we even step aside from education, for example, let's look at it from a professional standpoint. How can businesses actually use podcasts? What comes to mind are human resource departments. Maybe there's training modules that employees have to go through, and there are some very important and very content-specific resources and information that businesses or corporations want to give to their employees. They could upload it onto their website and maybe do it in some type of order where the employees have to go through step 1 or step 2, and then each time they go through a certain module or a certain podcast, they move on to the next one, so that they continuously benefit from this information. And then, once it's created, and here's the beautiful thing about a podcast, is that once it's created and the information is out there and you provide it to your employees, you're really reducing the amount of overhead costs that you have to have. You can really customize and adjust some of your training plans, some of your professional growth and professional development plans that you may offer. So you may not need as many people, as many resources, supplies, and books, because you have now the podcast that can be played over and over. So we can really use them as training technologies and training tools. We can develop worksheets. We could also have booklets and handouts that you can give to people, so as they are going through a specific podcast, they'll be able to answer questions. You could have guided readings, and you could also have people collaborate and interact with them as well. So now we looked at basically what they are and who can use them. But let's now look at why exactly are they useful. Again, the most important concept from my perspective for a podcast is that it can provide a tremendous amount of information and relevant information to the users. And the most important thing is, and I know we've all had this situation before, where maybe you were at a conference or at a meeting, or maybe you were just in one of your favorite classes, and you just really heard a lecture, and you just thought to yourself, wow, like, if I could just listen to this again, or I wonder what this concept or what this point was that this person mentioned earlier. The beauty of a podcast is that it gives you all of that information, and that you can pause it, you can fast forward it, you can rewind it. If you finish it, you can go back and listen to it again. The other thing is that there are people that will listen to information on the go. I have students of mine currently who use English as a second language. So there is this language barrier. So it's very useful for them, because now they can listen to some of the audio that I provide, and they can put it into their iPads, their iPhones. They even put it in their cars, and the parents play it for them, or as they're driving around, they listen to it. So you have a lot of information, and you can listen to it almost any time that you want to. The other thing is too, we use this for training, and like I mentioned earlier, human resource departments can really benefit from podcasts, because they can really sit down and fully develop a training program or a training module for their employees. And then once this is created, it will reduce the amount of overhead and even some of the confusion with the training program. And the wonderful part of it is that once you've created a podcast and you have this file in a sense saved, you can always add to it or make adjustments as needed. And now the bulk of the work is done. Now it takes a little bit of work in the beginning to set up the podcast, to go through it exactly. But a little bit of time and planning and preparation, you can really develop a very useful podcast. And it will be very, very helpful for your employees. The last thing is you can actually use this as some type of formative, or you can even use it as a summative assessment. Now, mentioning earlier about the employees is that when you are having them listen to certain podcasts, or going through the information, you can have a set of guided questions that you want your employees to answer. Maybe at the end of the podcast you explain a concept, and then you propose a question to the group. And maybe you want the group at the end of that podcast to elaborate on that or answer a specific question. And now, just through that one podcast, you can have people go on and collaborate and talk amongst each other, and you can provide feedback, and then you can start to see the relevance. And as you start with this interaction, and you start bouncing these ideas off each other, more and more people can look at where exactly can a podcast actually fit in my career field. This isn't just for teachers. You could have real estate agents, you could have doctors and lawyers. The list really goes on. Anybody who wants to basically provide information will benefit from the use of doing a podcast. Now, to sum everything up for my class, one thing that I would like you to do, and if you go onto my section there in the Canvas page, is that I want you to create a podcast of your own. Now, not just any podcast, we actually want to make it relevant to the career field that you are in currently. And what I want you to explain in that podcast is how this providing of information will benefit either the people you work with, some of the clients that you help, or how could you maybe obtain more business through it as well. So somehow figure out how this podcast will actually help you grow professionally. Now, we want it to just be about 5 to 8 minutes in length. So you might want to start typing up a script, kind of rehearse it a few times. Definitely want to edit some things as well. But that's the first part. There is a rubric attached to the assignment in the gradebook section there in Canvas. And then finally, once you actually have the podcast created and uploaded, the final step to this assignment is I want you to actually go in and listen to one of your classmates' podcasts. Now, here's the most important part. I believe that peer evaluation is a very, very important tool. So I want you to go on and I want you to provide relevant and professional feedback. Now, keep in mind, we all have our own opinions, and that's fine, but we just have to remain professional when we give that opinion. So we want to provide constructive feedback to the person that we were listening to. And now, in the discussion section is where we are going to provide all of that information and give all that feedback. And now there's a reason why I'm having us do it in an open forum so that everybody gets to see it. And the main reason is that everybody gets to see all the evaluations. So even though maybe someone didn't pick up something in your podcast, or maybe you're reading something in someone else's, and that could be something that you could implement into yours. Remember, the whole goal of this class is for us to grow professionally, is to do better. We should always want to do better the next time we do it. So moving forward, that's going to be the goal of this assignment. And if you go onto the Canvas page again, you will find all the specific instructions for the assignment, and we have already set up a discussion page for you to go on and put that information. You can also find on my page there just a sample podcast I did about the 5 themes of geography. Now, this was just a quick 3-minute podcast, but just to give you an idea, just some other options about what a podcast is like as well. And then that is just a normal MP3 audio, where this one I chose to do a PowerPoint, which is another sample of a podcast. So again, I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it and got some relevant information. I look forward to hearing your podcasts and actually jumping into the collaboration. Have a great day.